Okay, so here's the Purple Martin house that we're going to build. I'll show you how to do it. It's all cedar. This is the old Purple Martin house that I'm going to replace. It's getting a little dilapidated and falling apart. So say goodbye to that one and say hello to the white one. And this is the one. It's all cedar. It has the Starling resistant entrances on it, which you can get from the PMCA, the Purple Martin Conservation Association's website. If you go in close, you can see that it has 5 cavities on each box, so that holds 20, can hold 20 families. I made it easy to clean out by just putting dowels in there as the shelves, and then you just rest the piece of cedar on top of the doweling, which makes it super easy to clean out, and I like that. You'll notice that all the entrances are in the side of the box instead of in the door, so that there's a 90-degree turn that the birds have to make to get into the back of the box. And then I made the dowels a little bit extra long so that they also can act as perches for the birds, and they like to use those quite a bit. There's those Starling resistant entrances that you can get from the PMCA. And if you leave it untrimmed, you can actually just bend the entrance over to make a shelter for the porch. All right, so let's go to the store. Well, it's good to see the Purple Martins back this year, and it's good to see that the house works. Real quick, this glue works a lot better than the blue glue did. It holds a lot better. Okay, and into our build, again, the left-hand wall and the right-hand wall, you remember what we do is we glue the 3 boards together, and then we cut them in half. This is just a quick review using a CAD program to show you what we're going to be doing. Left-hand wall, right-hand wall, we first add the back wall, then we add the floor or the ceiling, and then we have our box. And we're going to do this 4 times. And then we're going to drill holes for the dowels, and you'll notice that in the front the dowels are longer than they are in the back. They're about 10.5 inches long in the front to act as perches. And then also we'll build some shelves. They have to be a little bit loose so that they don't bind. Okay, and then let's go to the actual cutting of the boards. We've got them all built. We're going to trim off the dog ears. First we measure to make sure we got 6 feet. Yep, we got 6 feet. And then we're going to trim off the dog ears, which removes about 1 inch of material, which leaves us with 71 inches. If you divide 71 inches in half, you get 35 and a half. So we're going to make our cut at 35 and a half so that we can end up with some symmetrical walls for our box. So measure 35.5, make the cut, and then we'll have our equally sized walls. And then we start in the glue up process again. This shows you how I do it. I lay it out flat. When you're doing glue up, you want to try to use gravity as much as possible. So you just lay out your bead of glue and then go ahead and clamp up your back wall, which is the same height as your side walls, 35.5 inches. Go ahead and lay a board up there, so when you go to glue your other side on, you can just lay it on top of the prop up board, like shown there. Clamp it up, allow it to cure, and then this is jumping ahead. We've got our 4 boxes without the floors or ceilings all glued up and ready to go. Allow those to cure, and then we move on to the next part where we're going to go ahead and put the floors and the ceilings in. This is a method that I use. You lay it out flat, lay your bead of glue on that lower surface, and then for the upper surface, just go ahead and lay it on the board itself. And then you slide it in there, but don't slide it all the way down. Leave a gap so that then you can just flip it up on its back and then put your bead of glue on that lower surface once it gets in place. This is showing the glue up operation. All right, and then there's that gap, and then you put your bead of glue in there, and then just either hammer it down in there or you can clamp it down. And then of course, once you get it all set, you just make sure you got it clamped up real good. I put a clamp on each board like I showed there, and then that's what the boxes look like. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the drilling of the dowels. And for this, you need a template. I made this one out of that thin boards that you use for soffits. I think it's called Luan. And then you make sure that you drill it in such a manner as to get about 6.9 inches for the height of each cavity. So kind of drill it out symmetrically like it's shown there. And then you have to be a little bit careful when you're doing this. Make sure that you don't flip your template around, but keep it oriented the same way when you're doing both sides. I did that before, and it ended up that the holes were crooked, so make sure that you don't flip it when you drill each side. Okay, now it's time to go to the store again. We're going to start getting our materials for our roofing. That's the material for the roofing right there. It's just flashing, the roll flashing that is used on roofs, and it works real good for the birdhouse roof. And then you just get some of the flashing sealant. And then we're also picking up our hardware, which is the zinc coated 5/16 inch, 1.5 inch long carriage bolts. Make sure you get your matching nuts and your matching washers. I've found that sometimes you can't fit washers in there because there's a little bit of variation in the boards, and so sometimes you're able to fit washers and sometimes you're not. This is showing you, if you go to Home Depot like I did, this is giving you the actual numbers so that you can just go to the store and pick those up. And then pick up 8 dowels, 3/8 inch diameter. These are going to be the purchase. Okay, and then we're at the clamp up operation. So this is when you've got all 4 of your houses all cured and built up. You clamp them up, and this is showing some of the bolts. So in each cavity, you've got 2 bolts, actually 4 bolts. 2 of them hold it to the back side, and 2 of them hold it to the side. So each box is attached to itself using 2 bolts. There's a total of 8 bolts. 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, and then what you do for your spacing here is that you have a piece of pole and you space your boxes just right before you go to drill your holes. You space it just right. Now I use some nylon strips, which helps it slide up and down the pole a lot easier. And then you just kind of get it snugly spaced. Okay, and then when you put it on the pole, you have to take one of the boxes off, fit it to the pole, and then reattach your bolts. This is showing the roof installation. And then the where I've applied the flashing sealant. And this is the way I chose to attach my pulleys, is using some galvanized angle iron with the pre-drilled holes. I've got one pulley on the box unit, and then two pulleys up on the top of the pole, which gives me a pretty good mechanical advantage. It's a pretty heavy box. You could probably actually do with 4 pulleys. I used 3. And then this one is showing how I install the entries. First, I just use the entry as a template to figure out my location. I use it to mark out where I'm going to make my cut. I space it back away from that front edge about 2 or 3 inches like shown, and space it up off the floor about the width of that lower portion of the opening. And then this is showing you how the perches are oriented. And then those back dowels, those are just the same width as the box itself. So there's a shot of the house without the door installed. Now what I do is I orient my openings so that they are, the maximum quantity of openings is facing towards my primary viewing area. So I don't necessarily drill the holes symmetrically, but I'll drill them so that I get to see the most bird openings from my porch, my back porch. And on the back side is where I have the minimum number. So that may be something to consider. I use a spade bit and do a 1/2 inch and drill each corner, and then I use a jigsaw to do the openings. Showing where I make the cut. And then going back to the CAD program, I'm showing you this is how I do my porch installs. I just use a couple of L angles to install each porch, and then on the lower porch, since there's not enough room to install it vertically like the top one, I'll just install the angles on the sides like shown there. Okay, and then here's a little bit about the door. Going back to that original video, I just use an I-hook combination, one single I-hook combination, and put a latch there, right kind of in the middle. And then you'll see that the strap hinges, you can also see in that picture the strap hinges, how they're oriented. And then going back to the CAD program, the strap hinges have to be spaced out away in order to allow the door to open. So you have to be kind of careful about that. And sometimes, depending on what kind of strap hinges you get, you may have to drill an extra hole in the strap hinge in order to get it to fit. And I leave a little bit of overhang there so that the rain can't get in through that opening at the top. And going back to the strap hinges here, you'll see that you may have to drill another hole where it attaches to the box in the hinge, which was the case with the ones that I had. All right, and that pretty much covers what I wanted to cover. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Thank you.